Okay, so what type of diabetes did she have?
Type 2.
Okay. So was this inherited by her family?
Yes, it was. It was from a hereditary problem that she was born with. Her mother, father, and several brothers and sisters all had it.
Okay.
All have it, yes.
Okay, when was she diagnosed?
1991.
Okay. What led her to get tested to see if she had it?
Her glasses that she had just received didn't seem to be working as well as they should, so she got an appointment with the eye doctor to go back in and have them checked. Checked the glasses, they were fine. Nothing was wrong with her vision at the time. The eye doctor did a little more of an in-depth test of some sort on her eyes and recommended that we contact our family physician or a specialist to see if she possibly had diabetes. And that started the whole thing.
Okay, and do you know what test she took to find out that she had it?
She had a blood glucose test and it also checked her A1C factor on her blood.
Okay.
And they did that over like a 30-day period. They did it 4 times.
Did it affect any body systems that the doctor could tell, and if so, which ones?
Yes, it was affecting her already, and she really didn't realize it at the time, but it was affecting her kidneys because she was going to the restroom more often than what she had in the past, but she really did. It happened over a period of time, so she didn't really notice it, and also it was affecting her pancreas and a couple of other organs in a really minor sense that the doctor said it was nothing to worry about at that time.
Okay. Okay, that leads us into our next question. What symptoms did she have?
Her main symptoms when she first was diagnosed and that we noticed, like I say, of course, was her vision, her frequent urination, and as the disease progressed and became worse over several years and she started getting tingling, shooting pains in her hands and in her feet, and also she would get hot or cold extremely easy, and finally, it got to the point where her blood sugar would constantly going up and down by itself. No matter what she tried to do to regulate it, she would get low blood sugar. She would get the shake. She'd get high blood sugar. She'd get extremely hot and agitated, and that was pretty much it right up. And fortunately, it didn't get any worse than that. The symptoms itself didn't.
Okay. Did the doctors say that this would affect how long she lived?
They did say that, to the extent that it was extremely important that we watch her diet, her exercise, and monitoring her blood sugar and keeping her medications regulated to keep her blood sugar as near to a normal level as we could, and especially her A1C number, keeping it down to a level where it wouldn't cause organ damage and things like that.
Okay. So what did she do to control her diabetes?
Okay, at the onset of it, after the diagnosis and that, we tried diet and exercise. That's what the doctors wanted to see what it would do. It did very little to help it at all. So they ended up putting her on, at the start it was 2 medications, and within about 60 days they added a third. And that worked for quite a few years where she was able to keep it under control, where it was really not, by watching her diet strictly, what she ate, her intake of certain foods, and her medication, she was able to keep it pretty well under control. As she got older, she had underlying diseases that popped up that, the diabetes did not cause them, but they didn't help it either. They contributed to making it worse. But she, once she got to that point, then of course her diabetes progressed with them, because of the other illnesses and stuff, so it got much worse. And so at that point in time, through hospitalizations for other illnesses, she got to a point where they had her actually on a ventilator and a feeding tube, and they had to administer insulin to her. And the fact they had to do this caused her to become insulin dependent. And so she stopped the pills and ended up on straight insulin. Then she took 2 different kinds of insulin multiple times a day. She took one, insulin at bedtime, and then she took another one 4 times a day. Okay?
So how did she know when her blood sugar was too high or too low and what she needed to do?
She had a blood glucose meter with test strips and a finger prick device, and she would prick her finger, take a blood sample on one of her test strips, put it in the meter, it would be in the meter, and the meter would read it and give her a number. And the number being above the norm would indicate that her blood sugar was high, which was 99.9% of the time that would be the case if a problem. And her Humalog, which she took multiple times a day, that was when she had to take it in the morning, with lunch, at supper time, and sometimes even one other time during the day, almost always 4 times a day. And would always be high. That would bring it down. And we had a specific dosage you used for a certain number that was based on her body weight and other factors and stuff. And then she had one long-lasting insulin that she took depending on what the number was at bedtime. Sometimes at bedtime the number might be very high, so she'd have to take her long-lasting insulin, plus we'd have to give her a quick shot along with it to get it to bump down. So there's a lot of days that she would actually take 5 shots, even though we didn't like that she had to do that. Diabetes can get where, like hers did in the last few years of her life, where it was virtually out of control. The medications affected it, but they didn't maintain a level of effect that the doctors wanted or we wanted.
How many times did she have to take the test?
She took this test a minimum of 4 times a day, sometimes more than that if she was feeling shaky, feeling some of the symptoms that she felt. And she'd get me my test kit and, get it for her, and she'd check it. And she's usually right. What she felt usually was what her blood was doing. She was usually pretty right on it.
Okay. In your own explanation, what would you say that diabetes is?
Diabetes is a very, very controlling and serious disease that I can tell you virtually we didn't take it seriously, when they diagnosed it. It took a few years for it to really sink in that, hey, this has changed our life. We need to start doing these things and doing them the right way. And probably one of the other hard parts was getting the rest of the family involved in it. The kids were used to coming in, bringing mom, and early in the morning when they'd stop by, they'd bring her a Hardee's biscuit and gravy, all the things she shouldn't be eating. They had starches in them, lots of sugars in them and things like that there. And so basically educating and working with the rest of the family and getting them to realize that, hey, this is a serious disease, even though you can't look at the person and see it, it's there and it's doing damage all the time. It's something you have to take constantly serious, and you have to look at it as the enemy. That this is something you've got to fight, but you can do it. It can be done. But once we finally started taking it very serious and doing, exactly what we were supposed to be doing, she got it under control for quite a few years.
And how did it affect her and her other problems?
Her and her other problems, I would say, personality-wise, emotionally, it probably put a drain on her, because a lot of things that she liked to do, like eat. Well, you know your grandmother. She loved to eat. She liked all kinds of foods. Anything new, it didn't make any difference. She had got to this point where she had the first thing she would do. She's got me doing it to this day. I go in the supermarket and pick something up to look, and the first thing I do is look at the nutrition label and see how many carbs does it have, how much sodium does it have, cholesterol, etc. I look at all and she read these things religiously to the point she created her own book and cooked her own. Well, you've seen them, her own cookbooks, so that she could use spices and stuff to make her food taste the way she wanted them to, without causing effect with her diabetes. And I say again, going back to the family finally adapted to the idea that this was their new mother, even though she'd been around for a while, and they were going to have to live with this too. And so I hope, I think my grandma's whole thing on it was probably the hope that, her being careful about this would show the kids that you need to keep a check of this. You need to read labels before you put stuff in your body. Just because it tastes good doesn't mean it's good for you.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably one of the biggest ones, because she had been that way a large part of her life. We all were. And then finally she got to this point where she just had to stop and say, I can't do this anymore. I want to live for a while. I want to see my grandbabies, etc. And that enabled her, with all the problems she had, to live to be 71 years old.
Mm-hmm. So having diabetes did affect her other problems, like heart failure?
Yes, it did. The doctors, the kidney doctor told us, her cardiologist told us, a couple of the hospital doctors that were like general case doctors told us that her diabetes was, the fact that as her disease progressed and her other diseases progressed, they were all mixed together. They made her other diseases much worse, because it stopped some of the treatments they could have done. It caused her kidneys to get bad enough to the point where, when she finally passed away, the first result of that was of kidney failure. That's what actually caused everything to start shutting down. but she wasn't a candidate for kidney transplant or kidney dialysis because her kidneys were in such bad shape, which, that was a direct result of, many years of diabetes,
Well, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Hope it helped you.